Are you somewhat interested and intrigued at the opportunity of looking into that Senate race? I'm assuming that's what they reached out to you to talk to you about.
Yes, I was very cautious. I didn't take it too seriously. And then ultimately, I ended up talking to someone who made it clear that there was a desire for me to be involved. It is very intriguing. I am thinking about it constantly.
This has got to be terrifying to hear for the worldwide leader in woke, ESPN. For starters, if Paul Finebaum ran for the Senate in Alabama, it would be an automatic victory. The Democrats shouldn't even waste their money because deacons at Woke United Methodist are not welcome in the state of Alabama. But Casey, Paul Finebaum is a sports commentator. He's a radio host. He has no experience in politics. Yeah, in the year of our Lord 2025, that's called a benefit. It's an advantage. This is one of the many things that Don Trump does not get enough credit for. Recently, we have seen several sports figures wanting to get involved in politics. Tommy Tuberville is a senator. Bruce Pearl, Stephen A. Smith has presidential aspirations. Well, that's not true. Stevie has said many times that he doesn't want to be directly involved in politics. Yeah, Stephen A. Smith has never seen attention that he didn't crave. Now, we have Paul Finebaum interested in running for the Senate. This does not happen without Donald Trump. And I'm not talking about his influence. I'm talking about the path that the Trumper paved. Love him or hate him, the Don opened politics to outsiders, which is probably why establishment politicians from both sides hate him. For decades, politics was kind of like the mafia. They didn't want outsiders in their club of corruption, blithering idiots who've never built anything and who built their wealth by taxing and taking advantage of people who actually have the ability to generate revenue. They didn't want the outsiders. They didn't want the business owners, entertainers, sports media figures. They did not want them to be allowed into their political mafia. I wonder why. When Don Trump rode down that escalator in 2015, an escalator that actually worked because it was not inside of a government building. When Don rode down that escalator in 2015, he burst through the proverbial wall. He crippled the political mafia like Rico did to the actual mafia back in the 1980s. Donald Trump opened politics to outsiders. Now, someone like Paul Finebaum, who has no experience in government, no experience in politics, someone like Paul Finebaum has the confidence to potentially run for the Senate and likely win, which is great for Paul Finebaum, not great for ESPN. There are very few people at ESPN who would be difficult to replace. Maybe even 95% of their television personalities, they're easily replaceable. For example, if ESPN made the decision to quietly remove Mina Kimes from television, no one would notice. If Elle Duncan and that doofus show Vibe Check was canceled, it might already be canceled. The show premiered over the summer, and I haven't heard about it since, which is exactly my point. If ESPN replaced Elle Duncan with another anonymous woman with shoulder-length hair, no one would care. People at ESPN wouldn't even care. If Mina Kimes left the network, it would open an analyst position to someone who's actually qualified for the job. Same with Monica McDougal, who continues to pretend that she's qualified to analyze the NBA, when the reality is she's not even qualified to analyze the WNBA. The vast majority of people at ESPN they contribute absolutely nothing besides converting oxygen to toxic mouth farts. But there are a select few, a very select few, who are incredibly valuable to the network. Believe it or not, Paul Finebaum, he's one of them. And if he leaves ESPN, they will notice. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the second channel in the description below. Later today on the second channel, gonna be talking about my boy Spence Rattler. You know, I like Spence Rattler. Up here, he's got what it takes to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. The problem is, I'm starting to wonder if he's got the physical capabilities that are required to be a franchise quarterback in this league. I'll explain what I mean and why I believe that Spencer Rattler could be benched very soon. So click the link in the description below, subscribe to the second channel. Back in November of 2019, Alabama, LSU, top two teams in the country going into their annual rivalry game. The SEC network, which is owned by ESPN, they wanted to do something major. They wanted to enhance the importance of the game. Paul Finebaum came up with what he thought was a brilliant idea. Every year before the Super Bowl, whichever network is broadcasting the Super Bowl that year interviews the president. Unless, of course, the president is our former fearless leader, Johnny B. Biden. In that case, the network interviews his magic pen. With Alabama LSU being the biggest game of the regular season, Paul Finebaum came up with the idea to interview the Trumper. He reached out to the White House asking if Donald Trump would be interested. Obviously, the answer was yes. Like Stephen A. Smith, Don has never met a camera that wasn't amazed by my incredible orange radiance. The interview was set up. Paul Finebaum would travel to Washington, D.C. to interview Donald Trump, and the interview would air before the game. There was just one problem, one tiny problem. ESPN told Paul Finebaum, "No bueno. We can't have the president on our network. We are the worldwide leader in sports. There are no politics allowed on our family of polished turds." That was 6 years ago. Paul Finebaum has not forgotten the opportunity that ESPN basically took from him. This was an interesting admission from Paul Finebaum because it negatively portrays ESPN. He made this admission in an interview with Clay Travis. He's essentially criticizing his employer on Outkick, which has been highly critical of the worldwide leader in woke, which makes me believe Paul Finebaum is leaving ESPN after football season. Well, Casey, who cares? ESPN will be just fine. Paul Finebaum is easily replaceable. If Paul Finebaum was the leading voice of the ACC, I would agree. If Paul Finebaum was the leading voice of the Pac-12, which I believe is now called the Pac-Dos, I would agree. But Paul Finebaum is the lead voice of the most important conference at the network. He's not just the lead voice. Paul Finebaum is the voice of the SEC. You can make the case that Paul Finebaum is more important to ESPN than Kirk Herbstreit. For starters, the entire SEC network is built around Paul Finebaum. I would be willing to bet that his daily radio show, most popular show on ESPN radio, and it's only popular in the southern half of the country. Think about it. Name one national show right now on ESPN radio. Name one host of a show, a national show on ESPN radio. Most people, including myself, couldn't do it, but everyone in the SEC knows Paul Finebaum. Like we have discussed before here on the channel, entertainment has become incredibly niched. NFL Live is hosted by Mina Kimes, Ryan Clark, and a rotating panel of others that no one cares about. NFL Live might have a larger overall audience than Paul Finebaum, but Paul Finebaum has a loyal audience. If Crying Ryan was replaced by Uncle Doofus, if Crying Ryan was replaced by Crying Brian, no one cares. But if you remove Paul Finebaum from Southern Radio, if you remove him from the SEC network, no one is watching. And this could be a very serious problem for ESPN. Right now, ESPN's in the second year of a 10-year deal with the SEC that's worth, I believe, $3 billion. Now, obviously, the actual games are the most important part of the deal, but you need someone to talk about the games. You need someone talking about Kalen DeBoer on Tuesday afternoon in October. More importantly, you need someone with credibility. You need someone that people in Arkansas are willing to watch. Right now, the only one ESPN has is Paul Finebaum. If he leaves, how do you replace him? The short answer is you can't. This dude has been on the radio here in the South longer than I have been alive. It's like Clay Travis, Buck Sexton trying to replace Rush Limbaugh. They've tried. I've got respect for both of them. They're both prominent figures in conservative media, but two prominent figures, that's not enough to replace an icon. The NBA's been trying to replace Michael Jordan for the last 30 years. If Caitlin Clark left the WNBA, they would never be able to replace her. Whether you like him or not, and Uncle KC has never been a fan of Paul Finebaum. I don't have anything against him personally, I've just never liked his show. But my personal opinions aside, there's no denying the fact Paul Finebaum is iconic in the South. He might not be a big deal in Chicago, but people in Tuscaloosa, they don't give a shit about Chicago. They care about Paul Finebaum. Recently, Paul Finebaum admitted that he voted for the Trumper. I can't imagine the last 5 years have been comfortable for him at ESPN. He is surrounded by people who think Will Thomas is the most dominant athlete in women's swimming. He's surrounded by people like Mina Kimes with a victim mentality. I don't think this interview with Outkick was a bargaining tactic. I don't think Paul Finebaum is using leverage to negotiate more money from ESPN. At 70 years old, if he has aspirations of running for the Senate, the time is now. This could be Paul Finebaum's final season covering college football. And if that's the case, how in the hell does ESPN replace him? You tell me. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys later.